Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this Friday look at how the Brexit media is spinning things, I have to take a look at an article in the pro-Brexit Daily Telegraph, which is daring to utter the words historic failure in regards Brexit. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I've been using a Friday video to look at how mainstream Brexit media are presenting their little project for a little while now. Sometimes it's to debunk some lies about the supposed benefits of Brexit. Quite often, lately, it's to point out how even these Brexit believers are having to point out the serious damage that is inflicted on us. But this article in the Telegraph this week is a bit special. So much so that several of you have been pointing it out to me. Phil, have you seen this? Have you seen this article? Yeah. It doesn't actually claim that Brexit is a historic failure right now, but that it's getting there. The author is suggesting that 2022 is the year in which Brexit needs to prove itself, otherwise all is lost. In reality, no matter how badly Brexit goes in 2022, and it's going to go quite badly indeed, they're not going to suddenly start calling for us to reverse. In 2023, they'll basically be saying the same thing, won't they? They may even use the same headline with another author to urge that in 2023, this really, with a cherry on top, has to be the year when Brexit comes good. But the other thing it's always worth considering when listening to Brexit advocates attacking the reality is, what exactly do they want out of it? Because I've said many times before, Brexit was pushed by a number of individuals and groups, both inside Britain and outside, but they didn't all want an exit from the EU for the same reasons. Boris Johnson, for example, just wanted the keys to number 10. If he could have got that by backing Remain, he would have done. Lexiteers thought it would turn the UK into a socialist utopia. Must come as something as a surprise that it's actually turning us into a right-wing fascist kleptocracy. Some were just driven by xenophobic ideology. I'll be touching on that in another video this weekend. Some others just wanted to deregulate the country. So what is it that this author in the Telegraph sees as the failures of Brexit so far? First, they say that we are making it much harder to import goods now. Of course we are. That's what the hard Brexit was all about. We raised trade barriers, so now we find it harder to access international markets. And we reserved our most serious trade barriers for our closest and most important market. Never mind all this free market claptrap, there is no outcome for Brexit where our trade is not weaker than it was inside the EU. Second, there's the hot button issue of migrant crossings and how they have risen massively since Brexit. Now this is another facepalm moment. People who thought that it would reduce these events are like people trying to put out a small fire with whiskey and then sounding surprised that actually ended up burning the house down. Refugees don't come across the channel in knackered boats for fun. They will take safer routes if they can. If you cut out safer routes and you collapse the agreement with France to try and reduce the number of crossings, then of course you're going to see a massive rise in those risky channel crossings. That this chart looks like it isn't in spite of Brexit. It's not happening in spite of Brexit. It's because of it. In fact, as this point was made in the context of controlling our borders, it's worth noting that we have no level of control over our borders. The author also echoes that. Our borders are basically open to both goods and people because we don't have the systems, we don't have the people, we don't have the infrastructure in place to do otherwise. I mean, we could close our borders completely, yeah, we could do that, but then we'd have no trade at all. Our choice right now is open or closed, not controlled. Third, he pointed out that our trade deals are worthless. Now that's a watershed moment. Much of the Brexit press have lauded these deals in order for Brexit supporters to keep faith. Easy to show with the government's own reports that these deals are worthless, and I recently did a job on the Australia trade deal, but most people don't see that. They see what the news media tell them. On this occasion, the news media are telling them that even the government say these deals are worthless. To openly point out that even the government have said that their trade deals don't really add much trade for us in a very pro-Brexit newspaper is quite something. He even went on to cite the intention to join the CPTPP, the trading bloc of Pacific nations, Another white elephant, but also one called out here. The author not only stated that progress on this endeavour was slow, but it's not at all obvious that there's any great benefit in it for us. He also talked about the lack of a US trade deal, but also noted that, do you know what, most free trade agreements don't actually do very much anyway. Then there was an odd graph used. He tried to suggest that UK exports had recovered from Brexit by using a chart that shows they haven't recovered. Doesn't explain exactly what that y-axis is, but it's presumably relative export trade. Thing is, this chart shows that every country on it has recovered from what was actually the pandemic, not Brexit. Those other countries didn't go through Brexit, and if you look at the date, that's 2020, that's before Brexit. But the UK is the only one not to have recovered. So the title above the chart is wrong for two reasons. First, the dip is COVID, because Brexit hadn't happened at that point. And two, if that chart is plotting exports relative to 2018, we haven't recovered. We're still below. In fact, from being in amongst the crowd, we are now lagging badly behind. But this gives you a lead into what the agenda of this article may be. It's not to trash Brexit as such. It is to attack the government for not giving them the Brexit that they want, as if it's a conscious decision. He says that the government still has the electorate on its side. No, it doesn't. We know that. In general, the Conservatives are now behind Labour in the polls and have been consistently now for some time. And also that a majority think that Brexit is doing more harm than good. But the author says that this is a way of urging the government to do what they want. He cited the dodgy Ipsos Mori Brexit poll that I debunked earlier this week, and that has since been deleted, by the way, as it was so bad that it came in for some pretty sustained criticism. Still, newspaper writers don't worry about whether their mathematical conclusions are valid or not. To be fair, most aren't necessarily even being dishonest, they just don't have the skills to analyse data. But the point is that the end section of the article shows what this is for. It's saying that Brexit is a complete disaster. There's no bones about that. Every aspect of Brexit is a disaster. They go through bit by bit how it's all a complete shambles. But it doesn't have to be this way, they say. The government could make it into a success with a few unspecified moves. Unlike some authors, this one's not saying what the government should do. But it is saying that it has to do it quickly, otherwise the project will fail. Of course, the reality is that if Brexit ever could be a success, supporters, in all honesty, have got years to make it so. It's done now. There's no route back to the EU until either the Conservatives back the move or they implode and cease to be a political force. Frankly, the former is actually more likely, although it doesn't sound it at the moment. Even joining the single market won't be a quick process and will certainly not happen in the next Parliament, no matter what happens at the election. At best, we could be looking at about 2030, at best. So the reality is that Brexit has years to prove itself. What this author fears, in my opinion, is the natural demographic shift that was always going to happen. During the referendum, 70% of young people voted to remain. 70% of elderly people voted to leave. So you can see, without even changing people's minds, those younger people are just going to get older, but they're still there. The older people are going to get older, and already many of them are not with us anymore. The shift is naturally towards a population that is more pro-EU than against it. If we don't just kept the Tories out of power a bit longer, in fact, Brexit wouldn't have been impossible to push. Even with their sophisticated social media campaigns, they only just snuck it at the time. Another 5 or 10 years couldn't have happened. I don't think Brexiteers are just worried about Brexit voters turning off the idea. I think they worry what happens if they cannot win over the younger generation when they start voting more. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.